Hello students, hope you are doing good. As you all know about the midterm policy, that will be based on your quizzes and assignments up to 65 to 75% marks. So inshallah we will start our quizzes and assignments by the first week from the Monday. And all the assessment will be included on the quizzes and assignments now. Today we are going to start our lecture on the game theory. In the previous lecture we have started this chapter that was about the game theory. This game theory is applicable in real life also. We have taken the example of oligopoly. That's why we say that game theory incites the oligopoly. As we have discussed, a game consists of players, strategies, and payoffs. Whenever we talk about players, so it means we are talking about two players, two strategies, and payoffs. There can be more than two players and more than two strategies, and payoffs are profits that after winning the game the player will get. The first game that we have discussed was the prisoner's dilemma. It means this is the simultaneous game where one player has no idea about the concept of or the move of the player 2 or the decision of the player 2. What would be the decision taken by the player 2? The player 1 has no idea. And what would be the decision will be taken by the player 1? The player 2 has no idea. Like the speed dating, like athletes game, serving and receiving in tennis, we don't know about the move of the other player. So this was the best example of the prisoner's dilemma. This was the first game. We have discussed about the example of two robbers. They make the robbery in a bank and police caught them and they went to jail. But the important point is both were kept in separate cell to avoid interaction. It means the player 1 have no idea about the strategy of the player 2 because they don't do discussion, they are in the separate cell. This is the game. Whether they will confess or they will remain silent for the prisoner A and for the prisoner B. These are the payoffs. The orange color prisoner, this is the payoff of the prisoner A, and blue color is the payoff of prisoner B. For example, if these pictures were not given to you, only the values like 5 years, 5 years, or 0 years, 20 years were given. So the first one was the payoff of the player 1 or prisoner 1, and the second will be the payoff of prisoner B. In all the games, we will discuss about the concept of dominant strategy and concept of Nash equilibrium. First of all, I will revise this game of prisoner's dilemma in this lecture. Whenever the prisoner A, first of all, the prisoner A have two options: confess or remain silent. Likewise, the prisoner B has also two options, which he can confess and he can be remain silent. If the prisoner A will confess, so prisoner B has two options, whether to confess or to remain silent. Given that the prisoner A will confess, if the prisoner B will also confess, first of all, you must see that prisoner A is confessing and prisoner B has two options, whether to confess or whether to remain silent. So it means if the prisoner B will confess, he will get 5 years jail, and if he will stay silent, he will get 20 years jail. So the better option is to confess. So prisoner B will confess. If prisoner A will remain silent, so again prisoner B have two options. He may confess or he may remain silent, because the prisoner A have no idea that prisoner B will confess or remain silent. So if prisoner B will confess, he will throw out of the jail, and if he will remain silent, he will get 1 year punishment. So the best option is he will confess. So in all the cases, whether the prisoner A will confess or remain silent, the prisoner B will always confess. So this is the dominant strategy of the prisoner B. Now we will see the dominant strategy of the prisoner A. If the prisoner B will confess, prisoner A have two options, whether to confess or whether to remain silent. Dominant strategy is what the other player will do. The player 1 will choose regardless of the strategy of other player. It means if prisoner B will confess, prisoner A have two options, whether to confess or whether to remain silent. If he will confess, he get 5 years jail. These are the payoff. If he will remain silent, he will get 20 years jail. So confess is the better option. Column wise, you can see the payoff of prisoner A, and row wise are the payoff of prisoner B. If the prisoner B remain silent, prisoner A have also two options, confess or remain silent. So if he confess, he gets throw from jail or he get out from the jail, and if he remains silent, he will get 1 year of the punishment. So confess. So confess is the better option here. It means in both cases, confess is the best option considered. This was the concept of dominant dominance strategy. The thing I preferred keeping other person's view in mind. As the confess was the dominant strategy in both the cases, now we will also discuss the concept of Nash equilibrium. So the concept of Nash equilibrium is that the both if the both players have the same payoff in one box, it means they have the Nash equilibrium. For example, you are saying here if the prisoner A will confess, the prisoner B in each case will confess. If the prisoner A will remain silent, the prisoner B will in all the cases he will if he will also confess. So the confess was always the best strategy considered. Here you can take the ballpoint and the page and you can mark the payoff given the strategy of one player. What will be the best strategy of the player or the prisoner B? So first of all, I will take for the Nash equilibrium the strategy of prisoner A. If the prisoner A will confess, the prisoner B have two options whether to confess or to remain silent. So row wise you will see the payoff of prisoner B, and this is the uh, left um, the second payoff will be of the prisoner B. When the prisoner A will confess, the prisoner B have two options, so he will confess. If the prisoner A will remain silent, the prisoner B have two options, confess or remain silent. He will also confess. So the confess is always the best option for prisoner B. So whatever the prisoner A will do, the prisoner B will always confess. This 5 years. Now we will see what will be the strategy for prisoner A. Now, if the prisoner B will confess, the prisoner A have two options, whether to confess or to remain silent. He will also confess. So, if the prisoner B will remain silent, so the best option he has also he will also confess again. So this will be the best strategy for the prisoner A and the prisoner B. Both will confess, and the first 5 years and 5 years. This is the box where both prisoners have the same payoff, or their payoff are going to be in one box. This will be the Nash equilibrium. If no player can do better by unilaterally changing his strategy, then such a set of strategies is Nash equilibrium. I don't want to change my strategy given your strategy. So this was the concept of Nash equilibrium given by the Nash, that the player A takes the best possible action given the action of player B, and player B takes the best possible actions given the action of player A. Here are some applications of the game theory, which are research and development, marketing budgets, output decisions, so price wars in concentrated markets like oligopoly. This game theory is very prevalent. The second game that we are going to discuss today is matching pennies. It means here we are discussing about the head and tail which the penny have, and the main thing which we are going to discuss here, they have no dominant strategy, and we will not see, or we will not see any type of Nash equilibrium. It means there will be mixed strategy Nash equilibrium. So here you can go through to see about what is the idea about this second game.
Zero-sum game where one player's gains and the other player's losses. The original matching penny game is when both players simultaneously flip a coin and seize whoever gains from the round and whoever loses points.
The game we've designed is called Card Flip, a game where each player has two cards, a jack and a king, and decides what to do based on what they think their opponent will do. They have a 5-second timer at the end. At the end of 5 seconds, they must play their cards at the same time. At the end of the 5 rounds, the points are totaled, and whomever has the most points is the winner. Looking at the payoff matrix, you can see that if both players play jack, then player 1 gains 1 point and player 2 loses a point. If both players play king, player 1 gains a point and player 2 loses a point. If the cards are different, like if player 1 plays a jack and player 2 plays a king, player 2 gains a point and player 1 loses a point. Same if player 1 plays a king and player 2 plays a jack, then player 2 gains a point and player 1 loses a point. The game isn't about coming to a compromise like the previous game, which is the stag hunt, but more about your ability to guess what the opposition is going to play. And based off of that, you can make a decision that you think will benefit you the most.
This game heavily relates to the penny game because it possesses all the concepts that the original penny game has. It is a zero-sum game as one player's gain is equivalent to the other player's loss. There is no pure strategy, heads or tails. That is the best response to the other player's best response. So neither player will want to cooperate with the other. Instead, the unique Nash equilibrium of this game is in mixed strategy. Each player chooses heads or tails with equal probability. In this way, each player makes the other indifferent.
This is the game about matching coins, head and tail. We're talking about two players, player A and player B. They have the same choices, which are head and tail. Player A have also two options, head and tail, and player B have also two options, head and tail. And likewise, we have done in the prisoner's dilemma. We will choose what will be the dominant strategy, whether they have the Nash equilibrium or not. Same, the idea is behind. Likewise, the game, likewise the idea of the prisoner's dilemma. Whenever the player B will choose head, player A have two options, whether to choose head or whether to choose tail. As you know that here the player A, they have the second payoffs, and player B have these first one payoff. Okay, so this is about the win and lose game. If the player B will choose head, player A have two options, whether he can choose head or whether he can choose tail. If you can see, if he will choose head, he will lose the game. If he will choose the tail, he will win the game, so he will choose the tail. And in second case, whenever player B will choose the tail, player A also have two options, head or tail. So here, if he will choose the head, he will win the game. If he will choose the tail, he will lose the game. So it means he will choose the head. First of all, he has chosen the tail, and here he has chosen the head. It means in both cases, or you can see, there is no dominance strategy of the player A. Likewise, you can do in case of player B, and if you can see, the player A will choose uh, the head coming on the coin. So player B have two choices, head and tail, and here you can see uh, the column wise that if he will choose the head, he has or he will win the game because it is one, and if he will choose the tail, so he will lose the game, which is -1. So he will choose one. And whenever player A will choose tail, so also he has two options, head and tail, and in this case he will choose head. So it means sorry, in this case he will choose tail. So in this case the player B also don't have any dominant strategy. And if you will note these points, that they don't have the common payoff in one box. You cannot see the concept of Nash equilibrium here. Whenever you will not see any idea of the Nash equilibrium here, it means here the concept of mixed strategy Nash equilibrium, but not the pure strategy Nash equilibrium.
Between choosing heads or tail. So neither player has incentive to try another strategy. So there is a mixed strategy Nash equilibrium. However, in our game, instead of heads and tails, we replace this with jacks and kings, as Pawan has mentioned earlier. So in this case, the heads is jack and the tails is kings.
So here we have people actually playing our awesome game. And here's round 1. And both players have played Jack, which means player 1 gets 1 point. And you can see here that the players are randomizing, which is a very good strategy to win this game, because it makes you unpredictable. In round 2, we have king and king again, which means player 1 gets another point. Now we have round 3. Over here in this round, player 1 gets another point. And we have king king again, which means player 1 again gets a point. And now we have the final round. And as you can see, they played the same card again, which means player 1 got got another point and won all 5 rounds, which literally makes her the luckiest person I've ever seen in my life. And the winner.
As we have discussed that in this game there was no dominant strategy and there is the concept of mixed strategy Nash equilibrium. Here we are discussing the third game, that we are finding the fight between male and female, that is about battle of sexes, which is, and here we will find out two Nash equilibrium, and there will also you will find no dominant strategy. Why you say no dominant strategy? It means you are not you are not choosing one specific option. It means there is no dominant strategy. In first case, you are thinking about one option, and in other case, you are thinking about another option, and in both cases, you don't have one decision. This is called no dominant strategy. So here you can go through this game also.
In the Battle of the Sexes, a couple argues over what to do during the weekend. The man prefers to go watch a boxing match, whereas the woman wants to go shopping. In this game, we have two players, the man and the woman. Each of them has to decide which of the two strategies to choose. Either go to the boxing match or go shopping. They can agree on what to do or go their separate ways and spend the weekend apart. This is considered a simultaneous game, and therefore we use the strategic form to analyze it, using a matrix. If they both go either shopping or to a boxing match, both will receive some utility from the fact that they're together, but one of them will actually enjoy the activity. Therefore, they will receive a final payoff of 2 or 1, depending on what they actually want to do. Since the couple wants to spend time together, if they go separate ways, they will receive no utility. Therefore, the final set of payoffs will be 0-0. In this case, knowing your opponent's strategy will not help you decide on your own course of action, and there is a chance an equilibrium may not be reached. This can be easily seen by looking for a dominant strategy equilibrium. For the man, boxing is the dominant strategy, since the experience payoff is greater than for shopping. However, for the woman, shopping is the dominant strategy, for the same reason. Therefore, we have two Nash equilibria. The only way we have to solve this dilemma is through the use of mixed strategies, in which we look at the probability of our opponent choosing one or the other strategy, and balance our payoff against it. In which we look at the probability of our opponent choosing one.
This is the concept of battle of sexes, that both men and women have a fight whether they will choose boxing or whether they will choose shopping. So first of all, there are two players, men and women, and they have two options, boxing and shopping. For the men and for the women, there is also option of the boxing and shopping. So first of all, if you want to see whether there is dominant strategy of the men or not, so you will choose that if the women will choose the boxing, so men have two options whether to choose boxing or the shopping. So in this case, the payoff of are this is the, you can see, left value. This is 2 and 0, 0 and 1. These are the payoff of men, and whenever you see the women, this is the second player payoff. The second payoff will be the second player's payoff. If the women will choose boxing, men have two options, because both have no idea about the strategy of other players. This is simultaneous game. They will choose the simultaneously make the decisions. So men have the options of choosing the boxing or the shopping. So in this case, if he will choose shopping, so no payoff. If he will choose boxing, he has some payoff, so he will choose boxing. If the women will choose shopping, so again, men have two options whether to choose shopping or the boxing. So he will choose shopping here, not the boxing. You can see from this side. So it means in case of the men, there is no dominant strategy. Whenever you are talking about the women's strategy, it means if the man is choosing boxing, so women have two options, boxing and shopping. So if she will choose boxing, so payoff is 1, and if she will choose shopping, payoff will be 0, so she will choose 1. And here, if the men have will choose shopping, women also have two options of the boxing and shopping. So again, in boxing she has payoff of 0, and in shopping she has payoff 2. So it means here she will also choose shopping. So it means the women also have no um, dominant strategy, but their payoff are matching in one box. So they have two Nash equilibrium. This is 2 1 and 1 2. They both have the Nash equilibrium because their strategies are going to match here. Now, you can take the idea of the dominant strategy as I have described briefly about the dominant strategy. Now, if you have any question or the difficulty, you can go through this and you can get the concept about this.
This is our introduction to game theory. Game theory is all about interdependencies. Basically, you play any game
soccer, basketball, football. The outcomes from that game, the results from that game, is not just dependent upon you, it's also interdependent. Interdependent upon what the other person does. The strategy, how they play, also affects your own outcome. So that's what game theory is all about. It's understanding situations where you have interdependencies between different actors. There's three things that all game theory scenarios have to have. They've got to first have players. Well, our players today are going to be Fred and Jack. Fred and Jack were involved in a crime. Or actually, you think of maybe a series of crimes. Some major, some minor. Police have a lot of evidence on the minor crime. They have very little evidence on the major crime. They've both been arrested. They've been put into two different interrogation rooms. They face strategies. That's the next thing you have to have. So you have to have players and you have to have strategies. The strategies are very simple for this particular game. Fred can confess, or he cannot confess. Same with Jack. He's facing the same exact strategy. He can also confess or not confess. The third thing you have to have for a game is you have to have payoffs. What are the outcomes? Win or lose, that's what we usually think about with the game. But in this situation, two different strategies, and there's more than just payoff, winning or losing in this particular game that we're going to look at today. If Fred confesses and Jack confesses, if they both end up confessing, we're going to put the payoff to both of them right here. Fred's payoff we're going to put here, Jack's we're going to put right there. If they both end up confessing, well, the police, still have a lot of evidence on them. Now they have even more evidence on them. They're not going to throw the book at them because they did confess, but they're still going to be put away for a pretty good amount of time. 8 years and 8 years. Next, we can think of a situation where Fred confesses and Jack does not confess. In that particular situation, Fred confessing, he turns state evidence. Jack, he does not comply with the police. He doesn't go along with the police. So this is really going to be bad for Jack. Jack's going to end up getting 20 years. And for his participation with police, compliance with police, he's only going to get 1 year. This particular square right here, we're going to have the exact opposite. Fred doesn't confess, Jack confesses. Not good for Fred. Fred's going to serve 20 years. And Jack, for confessing, turning state's evidence, they're only going to put him away for 1 year. Finally, we have a situation that Fred and Jack, they both don't confess. Well, that's the best situation for Fred and Jack. They're going to get the best result, which is 3 years. The police still has some evidence for those minor crimes, and 3 years. Now, when you look at this board, you would think, well, what's the best square for both of them? Right here, 3 years, 3 years. The problem is, we've got a situation that their self-interest is not necessarily going to take us there. So once again, they're in these two separate rooms. They have these two strategies that they can follow. What we want to find out is, what is the strategy they would likely follow if they follow their self-interest? Well, what we're going to look for is what we call the dominant strategy. Does either one have a dominant strategy? The dominant strategy is a strategy that's best regardless of what the other player does. Dominant strategy, a strategy that's best regardless of what the other player does. So, Fred, is that or that is either one of those the dominant strategy. We're going to evaluate both of these in regards to Jack confessing or not confessing. Simply put, Fred, what should he do if Jack confesses? Fred confess or not confess? Well, Fred confesses, Jack confesses, 8 years. If Fred does not confess when Jack confesses, Fred's going to get 20 years. So this is definitely the better strategy in that particular situation when Jack confesses. We don't know if it's the dominant strategy. What we're saying right now is Fred should confess if Jack confesses. It isn't a dominant strategy. For it to be a dominant strategy, it's got to be best regardless of what Jack does. Jack could also not confess. What should Fred do? Confess or not confess? Well, Fred confesses when Jack does not confess. That's the best situation, 1 year in jail. If Fred does not confess or Jack doesn't confess, it's 3 years. So, put a little check mark right there. Fred, it definitely looks like, or it doesn't just look like, Fred's definitely got a dominant strategy. Fred should confess regardless of what Jack does. So I'm going to put an asterisk right there, okay? We're also going to put one next to the strategy. That is the dominant strategy. DS is the dominant strategy. Jack, does he have a dominant strategy? Does he have a strategy that's best regardless of what Fred does? Let's take a look. If Fred confesses, should Jack confess or not confess? Well, if Jack confesses, 8 years when Fred confesses. If Jack does not confess, 20 years. Well, that's not hard to see. Jack should definitely confess. We don't know for sure it's his dominant strategy, confessing his dominant strategy. We have to evaluate it in terms of the other strategy that Fred can play. Fred does not confess, Jack confesses, 1 year. Fred does not confess, Jack does not confess, 3 years. Confessing is definitely the dominant strategy for Jack. So in this particular situation, we see that Fred has a dominant strategy, Jack has a dominant strategy, so where will they tend to gravitate if they play this game based on their self-interest? They will tend to gravitate right to this box right there, which on our next module we'll also find out is the Nash equilibrium.
There was the concept of dominant strategy in all the games, and we have found that the dominant strategy is the strategy that the player 1 will play regardless of the other player what he does. So that is actually the dominant strategy. Then we have discussed about the Nash equilibrium. In all the cases, in all the 3 games which we have mentioned in this game theory,
In our last video, we looked at game theory, introduction to game theory. We found out there is 3 things you must have to set up a game. Players, Fred and Jack, strategies, confess, not confess, not confess, and payoffs put into a payoff matrix. These are the payoffs that go to each player. Last time we learned about dominant strategies. Dominant strategies, what defined that was, is there a strategy that's best regardless of what the other player plays? So, was there a strategy Fred should play regardless of the strategy Jack plays? We also looked at if Jack had a dominant strategy. Is there a strategy he should play regardless of the strategy that Fred plays? We found out yes to both questions. Jack should confess and Fred should confess. They should both confess. Those are their dominant strategies. If they're playing within their self-interest, that's what they should do. For this video, we're looking at Nash equilibrium. Nash equilibrium is going to sound a little bit like dominant strategies, but it's slightly different. When we look at a Nash equilibrium, we're going to look inside the payoff matrix to the different payoff combinations and see if there's an equilibrium. Is there a place we'll naturally gravitate to? When we evaluate that, we're going to evaluate whether or not, once we think this might be a Nash equilibrium or this might be a Nash equilibrium, should they move away? Is there any benefit to moving away? What defines a Nash equilibrium is, given the strategy the other person has played, so let's say we're looking at Fred here, given the strategy that Jack has played, we'll evaluate this first. If Jack confesses, is there any benefit for Fred to move away? We're also going to say, given the strategy Fred has played, confessing, is there any benefit for Jack moving or changing strategies? When I say moving away, it just means changing strategy. Well, let's take a look at this. If Jack confesses, is there any benefit of Fred to move away? Well, if Fred confesses, he'll get 8 years. If he doesn't confess, 20 years. There's no benefit. We kind of know because of the dominant strategy for Fred is confessing. How about when Fred confesses? Is there any benefit for Jack to change strategies? Well, if Fred confesses, Jack confesses 8 years, or Jack does not confess 20 years, there's definitely no benefit. Once again, dominant strategy, you would expect that. So the intersection of the two dominant strategies gives us Nash equilibrium. It's a place that there's no benefit for either player to change strategies given the strategy the other person has played. Let's evaluate another square. Let's take a look at this one. For this square, let's say Fred has not confessed, or for this square, it would be that Fred has not confessed, and Jack has also not confessed. Well, given that Fred has not confessed, is there any benefit for Jack to move away? Well, 3 years to 1 year. Jack not confessing, 3 years when Fred does not confess. If Jack moves strategies 1 year, definitely a benefit. Definitely not a Nash equilibrium. We'd actually find out the same is true for Fred. He should also move away from this. So this is not a Nash equilibrium. Let's take a look right here. For this one, we're assuming Fred confessed and Jack did not confess. That's what's happening when we get these payoffs. Fred followed this strategy, Jack followed that strategy. Is there any benefit for Fred to move away? Well, given that Jack has not confessed, is there any benefit for Fred moving away? 1 year to 3 years? Absolutely not. It's actually better if Fred continues to confess. That doesn't mean it's a Nash equilibrium. We've got to say, is there any benefit for Jack to move away given the strategy Fred has played? Fred confesses, Jack's not confessing, he's getting 20 years. When Fred confesses, how about if Jack moved away, played a different strategy? Did he get a better result? Absolutely did get a better result. Jack should move away. This is also not a Nash equilibrium. Not a Nash equilibrium, not a Nash equilibrium. Let's evaluate this one right here. For this square, for this payoff square, Fred did not confess, Jack confessed. Those were the strategies that they followed. Well, should either one move away given the strategy the other one has played? When Fred does not confess, is there an advantage for Jack to go from confessing to not confessing? Well, 1 year, 3 years, absolutely no benefit for Jack in moving away. Doesn't mean it's a Nash equilibrium though. You've got to see, is there any benefit to Fred to change strategies given that Jack has confessed for this? When Jack confesses, we're assuming in this square that Fred has not confessed. How about should Fred move away? Absolutely. You can go from 20 years to 8 years. There's definitely a benefit. So this is also not a Nash equilibrium. Since they're not Nash equilibriums, they won't tend to gravitate to that outcome. Could this outcome ever happen? Yes, with collusion or collaboration. But if they act in their own self-interest, it's very rare that any of these outcomes will happen. This is what we'd expect to happen, the Nash equilibrium.
Here was the concept of Nash equilibrium, that no one will move when the best option they will get, best payoffs they will get. It means they have no options to move from that. And you can see here the Nash equilibrium concept we have done in case of prisoner's dilemma game, and in case of matching pennies there was there was mixed strategy Nash equilibrium, and in case of battle of sexes we have found two Nash equilibrium. So this was about the game theory concept. We have discussed about the governance strategy, and we have discussed about the concept of Nash equilibrium. If you will have any question, you can ask um, on the platform that you have given to all of the students.